What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down the Wire. I'm your host, Brian Kostiw, and today we have got a great episode in store for you. It is our first episode back in the Koffler Center and at Bryant University this spring, and I am really excited for all that we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to break down the Patriots rehiring Bill O'Brien, Pat Mahomes, his health situation heading into the AFC Championship, and a whole lot more. And frankly, I am really excited to welcome back on today's guest. He's been on the show plenty of times before. He is the voice of the Bryant University Bulldogs football team, Mr. Zeke Kransdorf. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you guys for requesting that I come back on, really strong arming Brian into putting me back onto this podcast. Now, I'm really excited to be back on. Yes, talk some sports again.
Man, Zeke, my hand was really forced here, so I am glad to have you back regardless. But not like, man, how have you been, since you came back to Bryant?
It's been pretty relaxed, easy 2 days, just going over syllabi and everything like that. So just getting ready for the next school year, getting excited, and honestly looking forward to a lot of the broadcasting opportunities that are coming up. So if you're interested, a little subtle plug here, if you're interested, please feel free to look on the WJMF website and go to the e-board members, and you can see my email there. So if you're interested in broadcasting any games, feel free to reach out. I do check my email almost every day.
Yeah, and I guess while we're on the topic of subtle plugs, I guess I'll basically say, if you guys want to follow Down the Wire, you can follow us on all streaming services like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and then for any updates on the show, any of that stuff, you can follow us over on Instagram at down.to-the-wire. So make sure you guys go follow there for any updates about the show, sports news. It's always a good time. Now that I'm back in school, I got a pretty manageable, I think, course load for this semester. So I'm hoping to be pretty active with you guys, giving you guys a bunch of sports news. So I guess leading off things tonight, Zeke, obviously both Patriots fans here. I think we finally got a sigh of relief when it came to this Patriots offense. Bill O'Brien, former offensive coordinator with the Pats, in the early 2010s, quickly, established himself in the college football game, then went to the NFL, had a situation with the Houston Texans where he kind of burned out there, and then, was trying to find himself for a little bit, rebuilt himself at the University of Alabama, and now boom, back in New England, trying to help out Mac Jones after that horrific 2022 season from that Pats offense. So, just initially, what are your thoughts on Bill O'Brien going back to New England?
I actually really like the hire. It feels like a move that's not just kind of overhauling everything that went wrong last year,
sure,
but also trying to build towards the future. If you truly believe that Mac Jones is the future, like I think the Patriots front office does, then bringing in his former offensive coordinator at Alabama, someone who's familiar with his game, who knows his strengths, knows his weaknesses, knows what to do, what to avoid. I think that's a really strong move for the Patriots to try to bring in someone who has that expertise already instead of trying to build that connection inorganically.
Yeah, I like the move too. So I know that Mac and Bill O'Brien kind of already do have a history with each other. I don't believe they actually did cross paths during their time at Alabama, but when O'Brien went onto the staff, Jones was actually one of the people that helped him really learn that offense and get him to where, he could run that offense and be the comparable coordinator that he could be. So they already have some sort of rapport. I'm excited for what that can be. It's already proven that when Mac Jones has a competent and, just a decent OC, like he can do tremendous things on the football field. He put up ridiculous numbers at Alabama. Of course, he had tremendous offensive weapons, but even in his rookie season with the Patriots, under Josh McDaniels, it was his most, I think he was the most consistent rookie quarterback. He was very efficient on the field. So I think, getting someone like O'Brien in here, it definitely is a plus. I'm not going to lie to you. When, he was on the Texans and was kind of, fumbling around with situations there. I forget when the D-Hop trade and all that stuff went down, but so I don't know if I ever talked about it on the show, but I was really anti-Bill O'Brien at the time. I was like, wow, just this guy fell from the Belichick coaching tree. Just this guy doesn't know what's happening anymore. And I've kind of had a change of heart. And here's why, because I think that Bill O'Brien in Houston was in over his head in terms of what he was given. Bill O'Brien is not an NFL GM. Frankly, I think the Texans saw the model that the Patriots did where Belichick runs the whole thing and they thought, all right, Billy can do that. That's not the case. No. And frankly, some people even question whether Belichick is even that good at calling those shots. So I think, get O'Brien in where he is, like this is like where he makes his money. It's calling the offense, calling these plays. And I think that he's going to be really successful for it. At least, he'll be able to maybe reset and save Mac Jones after, Matt Patricia basically ruined him this year. Like I respect Matt Patricia as from a defensive minded standpoint, but you can't put a defensive coordinator as your offensive play caller. It's never been done before, and we now know why. It ends terribly.
Yeah, and going off of that point about being over your head, some people are just good coordinators, and that's all they can be.
Yeah,
that's fine. You look at Vic Fangio, great defensive mind, fantastic defensive coordinator. When he was the Broncos head coach, he didn't do a good job because he's not a good head coach. Being a good head coach and being a good GM does not make you, does not mean that you are automatically a good coordinator and vice versa.
No.
And what we saw in Houston with Bill O'Brien was a perfect example of that. Good coordinator, terrible coach, terrible GM.
Yeah. I mean, that's just what it really is, man. So I'm excited for what this Pats team could look like going forward. I think that they are still going to need a massive overhaul this offseason because, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm looking at these AFC playoffs and I'm just like, I don't see the Patriots being anywhere close to these teams right now with the way that they were playing last year.
Well, yes, but at the same time, I feel like you have to look at this season and think, how the heck did we manage to get even that close to being a playoff team? No, man, we were one game out.
No, man. And listen, it's credit enough to Belichick and the players on the field that they were trying to go out there and win those games. I mean, you have to give credit to those guys, but that's not what I'm talking about in terms of just like gutting out these wins. I see like my issue is, you see Pat Mahomes, who we'll talk about later on the show. You see Josh Allen and even Joe Burrow in a sense, and they're just doing ridiculous things, like talent wise. I think Josh Allen, that game against the Pats, he threw, what was it? Like that 60-yard touchdown pass to Diggs
from the far hash.
Yeah. He was flat footed. Like I'm just like, how are we going to compete with that for the next 10 years? It just, you look at that and you just want to give up basically.
And I feel like we as a roster are very old-fashioned in terms of our football kind of style.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fun to watch.
No.
It's not, you're not watching a quarterback air it out 60 yards downfield from the far hash. That's just not feasible. Mac Jones is not that quarterback.
Yeah.
What he is an accurate passer, or at his best, he's an accurate passer who makes the right decision and is safe with the football. That's,
yeah, I mean, that is who Mac Jones is. And I mean,
and that can win games.
Yeah, it can.
With a strong running game, which we historically have had,
mm-hmm.
and with a stout, solid defense, which again, we historically have had, that can win games and that can get you in the playoffs, and you capitalize off of the mistakes that are made by those ridiculous playmakers who are airing the ball out 60 yards downfield.
Mm-hmm.
If you play that sort of brand of football and you are able to capitalize off of other players' mistakes, then you're golden. You can win.
Yeah.
You can make it far. But as of right now, we need to build our roster to try to build back towards the vision and that style of football that we play. You need to build for your identity as a team. And the Patriots' identity as a team is playing hard-nosed, smash-mouth football where the run is emphasized more than the pass. And right now, we just we didn't see any offensive scheme, let alone a good one.
Yeah, and I do agree with your idea as to how this Pats team should move forward. I think that utilizing the run game and getting guys like Ramondre Stevenson, those touches, if he's what he was last year going forward, I think that's going to be a tremendous part of our future moving forward. But you ended up saying like Mac Jones isn't a Josh Allen. He isn't like a Pat Mahomes. Like he is just that traditional pocket passer. He's accurate when he's coached well. And it's just like, all right, if he's not going to be that X factor player, we need to go and we need to either develop or go get some X factor players. And I know that, the Pats there are a couple skill position players the Pats have been linked to in the offseason. Mainly one guy in the trade market that's been really, highly talked about is DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know if you ended up catching it, but during, I think it was the Arizona Cardinals Hard Knocks, it caught like a conversation between Hopkins and Belichick. And, D-Hop and, Belichick, apparently have tremendous respect for each other. And Bill ended up saying like, hey, man, I'm lucky we only have to play you, like every 4 years because you're in the other conference. So, it's very rare when Belichick, talks that highly of like, another player because, even Tom Brady, he won't even like say like, oh, like, man, I love Tom. Like it's like pulling teeth to get like a, positive statement out of him. But you mentioned Lawrence Taylor and, he's gushing everywhere. Like, so, I mean, obviously he must have tremendous respect for him. And frankly, like, Hopkins obviously has been, a quality receiver ever since he's come in the league. I'd love for him to be on the Pats, but now with Bill O'Brien in the fold in New England, I feel like that path is kind of
burned.
I feel like that path's kind of
we're not getting Hopkins as long as we have O'Brien. They have too much history there. That's just not going to work out well. Now, there are some moves for the offseason that I have in mind.
Yeah.
Specifically, if you can re-sign Damian Harris on a cheap deal, I would. He has familiarity with the offense. He's a good 1-2 punch with Ramondre Stevenson. And we need to get, and I cannot stress this enough, we need to get Jonnu Smith and Nelson Aguilar off the team. They are dead cap, and they don't help us.
No.
Like, I remember there was a play in the Bills game, the final game of the season, where Mac Jones threw the ball expecting Nelson Aguilar to run a go route, and Aguilar just stops. And there's no reason for him to stop. It's not like it was supposed to be a curl route or anything like that, because he just stops and doesn't even turn around for the ball, and it ends up being an interception in the red zone. Crushed our drive. That's one of the mistakes that you can't have when you play the style of football that the Patriots play. You cannot afford to make mistakes because you don't have the superstar X factor. If I'm bringing Madden into the fold, you don't have that superstar X factor player who can just drag you out of those situations with talent alone. You have to win. Like, you have to kind of make those superstar X factor coaching plays, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So obviously, if a guy like Hopkins is going to be out of the fold and some other superstars are going to be out of it, the other place that you can sometimes look to, get talent is through the draft. Zeke, I know you're a huge college football guy.
Love it.
And, I'm trying to remember where the Pats are picking again.
We're picking at 14 in the first round.
Okay.
But then again, there is only 31 picks in the first round, so that's going to throw off every.
Is that because of the Dolphins?
That is because of the Dolphins owner tampering and everything like that.
Yeah. So at pick 14, that's a pretty good position, I think, for us to potentially get a skill position player. There are two guys. I don't know where one of them would be, but I feel like one could potentially be within our range. As a Michigan fan, it hurts me, but I would really like the Pats to take a look at Jackson Smith and Jigba. When he was healthy in 2021, he was just absolutely dominant. So I think that if they could get him on on their roster, like, that could be an incredible move. And then someone else who caught my eye this year was Jalen Hyatt out of the University of Tennessee. I feel like he's just like one of those guys, like a Tyreek Hill, like one of those guys where I feel like you could use him in a lot of different ways. And I think that, potentially, he could be a real weapon for you.
So my opinion on it's not the same receiver draft that we've seen for the past couple of years, right? There are definitely some guys that are higher up and on a separate tier from the rest, but even those guys, they're not a complete, talent. Like, they're not complete prospects yet.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of the 2019 wide receiver draft, where you're going to see a lot of guys go in the second round rather than in the first, like we have been seeing in these past couple of years. So you're going to have speedsters like like Hollywood Brown, and then you're going to get some gems in the second round, like your AJ Browns, your DK Metcalfs, and stuff like that. I think that like receivers are probably not going to go as early as people might think they are, and I don't really trust that the Patriots drafting wide receivers.
That's fair.
Especially not in the first round.
Yeah,
second round, we didn't get to see a lot of Tyquan Thornton, but I think he could really be like, he's quick, like really quick. So if you get him going in sort of that role that you're referring to about Jalen Hyatt, I think that really the only other role that we need filled is sort of that do it all guy, that the role that Jacoby Myers fills right now. So maybe if you're not able to re-sign Jacoby for a reasonable rate, I think they might go after someone like Jordan Addison at a USC, or formerly Pitt. He played with Kenny Pickett, put up insane numbers, transferred over to USC, and he was hurt for the end of the season, but when he was on the field, he was pretty electric. So I think that might be one of the directions that the Patriots go. That's not their only need, wide receiver. They need other things, like I would say they need offensive line help, because Trent Brown just was penalized almost every single play.
He was a mess this year,
and
he was a mess.
I don't know if you re-sign Isaiah Wynn, because he's a turnstile sometimes.
Yeah, and when he's not, he's either committing penalties left or right, or he's hurt. So like it.
Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe you go after one of the tackles, like Broderick Jones out of Georgia, or there's an offensive tackle out of Ohio State that's fairly highly regarded.
Okay.
I'm no offensive, like I'm an offensive lineman through and through. I'm not an expert on everything offensive line. If you're looking for that, I have some recommendations. Go check out Brandon Thorne. He's fantastic. And then there's Duke Meriwether, who is someone who actually works with offensive linemen to try to train them up, and he helps with like draft like offensive linemen to be more draftable and try to fix their technique and everything like that.
Yeah.
But I don't have the same expertise as like your Brandon Thorne or your Duke Meriwether. So if you really want to learn more about offensive line and offensive linemen and which ones to draft, which ones not to draft, listen to them rather than listen to me. But I digress.
Yeah, and listen, I think that the Pats probably just need a guy like that probably back on their coaching staff, because they lost Dante Scarnecchia. He's since retired again, and basically since he's left, their O-line's been just completely off the rails. So I don't know if you could ever get him back into the fold into coaching again, but I like, you need to get they definitely need to do some work in that area on the coaching side.
Yeah, we just need an offensive line coach that is not, because I'm pretty sure it was Matt Patricia, was it not?
Probably. Yeah.
He was the offensive line coach, and just because you're putting a larger gentleman as an offensive line coach does not mean that he knows what he's doing in terms of that. Again, defensive minded coach, sure. You want a defensive guy to coach the defense, sure. If you put him as a defensive line analyst, I would be fine with that. Mm-hmm. But offensive line is a completely different animal. I played both of them in high school, and the technique completely different between the two. So you just need someone who knows what they're doing, and not just a former Belichick disciple who's just being hired back because he's friends of the program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of going off, Belichick disciples and people like that. I kind of want to talk about like this whole Patriots coaching situation that's been going on, because when the season ended, there was like this big what's it called? Like there was essentially a big press release that the Pats put out on their social media that said, all right, we're going to be extending Gerard Mayo, and then that they were going to be doing that offensive coordinator search. And that basically seemed like it was just straight down from the ownership when that announcement came out. That didn't seem necessarily like a coaching Bill Belichick decision there. So Gerard Mayo is back. It looks like his new position is going to be assistant head coach. And looks like right now he is gearing up to become the next head coach of the Patriots once Bill Belichick does walk away.
And honestly, I think that's a good move.
I do too.
I like Gerard Mayo. He was a great player for us. Definitely understands football. He really has done a fantastic job with our linebackers. Our linebackers are not the issue.
Yeah.
Going into this season, we thought, oh my gosh, they have nobody at linebacker. They have Dante Hightower retires. You see, you got rid of Kyle Van Noy. You think, it's going to be a problem. And that just wasn't the case. So, all credit to Gerard Mayo for the job that he did with the linebackers, because the linebackers were not the problem with our team last year. So having that sort of person, that talented on our coaching staff, especially that high up of a position, I think is really beneficial, not just now, but also for the future. And you kind of hand the defensive coaching reins then over more to Steve Belichick, and I think he's done a good job as well. So I like the spot that our defense is in, and I like the spot that Gerard Mayo's in, and I'm looking forward to the Patriots' future as well.
Yeah, and I also like the Gerard Mayo move, and here's my reason why. I mean, like you said, like the issue with the Patriots is that traditionally, like they are, like their coaching staff, it's just Bill's guy, and like that's typically who it's been for the longest time. And I'm not going to say that Gerard Mayo isn't, of Bill's coaching tree, because he is. Like Bill brought him in, and he does his thing, but it kind of reminds me of a Mike Vrabel situation. That's what I think Gerard Mayo could be if he was to come to the Pats, where he learned under Belichick. He learned all his secrets and tools to the game to be successful under Bill, but he kind of is his own person, and I think could bring his own personality to coaching.
And he's a player's coach too.
Yeah.
Like that's I feel like that's something that kind of gets swept under the radar.
Mm-hmm.
Being a player's coach, especially nowadays where free agency is a lot more open, and a lot of times you have players really deciding to sign with a team because of culture fit rather than just sheer money. Having a player's coach on your coaching staff is highly beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Dan Campbell and the Lions. The culture that Dan Campbell's built up in Detroit,
and basically building up from the ruins that Matt Patricia has left.
Absolutely. And so you have players who would run through a wall for him. And that's the best thing that a coach can have, is players that are motivated and that buy in because they like their coach.
Yeah.
You don't have that right now, but because he's not a player's coach.
No.
And he never was, and that was never going to be the case. But it definitely adds a different element when you have the potential free agent attraction that having a locker room guy like Gerard Mayo is. Having that sort of player's coach is really beneficial, especially in free agency.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Zeke, another great players coach, and frankly, one of the more notable ones and successful ones in the league, is actually battling in the AFC Championship game this weekend. That's Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to be in for a bit of an interesting game as we gear up for this Sunday, because they're going to be facing off against the Cincinnati Bengals. They have had their number basically since Joe Burrow has come in the league. And also Pat Mahomes is, on thin ice right now. He suffered that really tough high ankle sprain against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Really tough injury for him. He was still able to come out there, finish the game, and, was able to, show even some signs of athleticism after that. But he's definitely going to be a lot more limited this Sunday. What do you expect out of Pat Mahomes?
Well, I mean, it all depends really on kind of a closer to game time update on his ankle. Cause from what I've seen from like some practice videos and everything like that, he looks good. He looks like he's, able to put weight on it, but you never really know until you get into that full speed game time experience. Because if you look back to that Jaguars game, even on running plays, he was struggling, because if it's a stretch run, he had to make his way all the way over towards the tackle to get the handoff in time, and he just, he was hobbling. He couldn't get over there. So hopefully, I hope all players are as healthy as possible, because you want to see the best football game.
Yeah.
But he hopefully his ankle's all healed up.
Yeah.
Because it's just not as good of a product when you see a player, like a generational type player like Pat Mahomes is, struggling to do a simple outside run because he can't make it all the way to give a handoff.
Yeah. And man, let me tell you this, like, Pat Mahomes in that Jaguars game, he was playing out of his mind early on before that injury. Like, he was just like making these crazy sidearm throws, the pockets collapsing around him. He makes like a jump throw to Kelsey down the field. And I was just like watching it. I was like, this guy is like, this is like generational. Like, this is incredible to watch. And, sometimes it like, I enjoy it, but there's also like that kind of homer in me that kind of ends up going like, that goes like, this isn't the football I grew up watching. But at the same time, I'm like, good. Like, this is almost like, when you would play Madden football and you would just like make these crazy plays.
Oh yeah.
That's what Pat Mahomes brings to the table. And, while obviously you want him to be healthy, I'm actually intrigued by what this injury could lead him to become, as a pocket passer, because, I think that, I think later on in his career, when he maybe isn't as athletic, I think he could be a pretty successful pocket passer, just like that simple drop back guy, because he's still going to have that cannon arm.
Oh, and he has a lot more of a longevity to him than I think some other quarterbacks do. Because while he has his athleticism and using his legs, it's not his main skill set.
No. It's not a Lamar Jackson thing where his legs are essentially his crutch,
or even a Josh Allen thing where, Allen, he does have the cannon for an arm, yes, but his decision making is not at Pat Mahomes level. Pat Mahomes, he has the arm and he has, the brains to kind of scan the field, make the right read. And he's safe with safe might not be the right word for it, because he, sometimes it's, F it, Kelsey's down there somewhere.
Yeah.
But he doesn't turn the ball over nearly to the same level as Josh Allen does.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, I'll say this: when Mahomes went down and then Chad Henne came in the game, I mean, credit to Chad Henne. He hasn't played meaningful snaps in probably a couple of years now.
Yeah.
But he came in this game, and when I saw them marching down the field for that touchdown drive, it made me realize that, like the Kansas City Chiefs, it seems like almost every offensive drive, they have like some weird Mickey Mouse like kind of play that just usually is meant to embarrass the other team because of just how freakishly athletic they all are. And when Mahomes went down and that element went away, it was interesting to see them be able to just run a very traditional, like, pass, run first pass offense.
Yeah.
But do it successfully. Like it was like, wow, like these guys could play like just straight up. In my mind, like you could have like, when Ryan Tannehill was like doing good for the Titans, you could have a guy like that back there, run that offense they had, during that stretch with Chad Henne, and they could be maybe just as successful as they are now. Maybe not as much, because
I would probably say they would still be a playoff team.
Yes.
At least the seventh.
Yes, they would still be a playoff team. If you put Mac Jones in that team and you ran just like a very traditional offense, you're in the playoffs. That's the thing. Like, you're in the playoffs with just a very traditional offense. But because they have the ability to do so much, like the plays where Kelsey sliding under center, you have like all the like these crazy, just like direct snap plays. It's just really interesting to see.
And one thing I'm actually very curious to see is what would happen with a Kelsey-less Kansas City Chiefs. We've seen what the Chiefs are like without Mahomes, but in some ways, I'm curious to see if they would still have that same consistency, still have that same ability if Kelsey wasn't playing, because he seems to be, he's the safety blanket, and two, he seems to kind of make even like wrong throws and wrong reads right in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing a Kelsey-less Chiefs in the years to come will be fairly interesting.
Yeah. I mean, one other guy I wanted to mention on that offense too, that I really wasn't too aware of going into that game, was Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah.
He was incredible for them. I mean, he is a workhorse back. Like he is like one of those, like, like there are those guys that, you put them in the backfield, they'll juke a bunch of guys out and then they'll, gain some yards. They'll gain some yards up the field. He is that traditional, like, give me the ball, I am going to power through that O-line for a touchdown kind of back. Like,
so I'm running downhill,
yes,
whether you like it or not,
yes,
kind of back.
Straight up downhill runner, kind of LeGarrette Blunt type guy. Like that is like the fact that the Chiefs have that guy, that makes them dangerous in this stretch run too.
And he wasn't highly touted either.
No.
Like he was I think either a 6th or 7th rounder out of Rutgers.
Yeah,
right. No one was talking about Isaiah Pacheco before he made his way to Kansas City, and he wasn't even going to be the premier back. It was supposed to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but with Edwards-Helaire down with injury, Pacheco's comes in. That's going to be a dangerous 1-2 combo. The Thunder and Lightning duo for the Chiefs in the years to come with Edwards-Helaire and Pacheco. Yikes.
Now that could be a very dangerous duo. Now, obviously, going into this Sunday, we're gonna have a great game between the Chiefs and the Bengals. Joe Burrow coming off that great win over in Buffalo. How do you feel about in terms, just in general, how do you feel about this AFC Championship game? What's your prediction this Sunday?
So I'm excited. Everyone was questioning, like, going into the Bills-Bengals game, how is the Bengals offensive line going to fare? And I think they really shut everyone else up.
Yeah.
They played phenomenal football against a Bills defensive line that was pretty solid going, in the prior weeks and everything like that. Going against Chris Jones and the Kansas City front that it absolutely terrorized everyone that they've played against, it's going to be a little bit different. I feel like Burrow is going to have to kind of think back a year. More than last game, he's definitely going to have to kind of remind himself of his offensive line just a year ago. And I feel like it's going to be a very similar style game to the 2021 AFC Championship game, where it's going to be back and forth. The Bengals, give a shot. The Chiefs give a shot. It's going to, kind of be blow for blow, pretty high scoring, I would think. The Bengals defense actually played really well against the Bills, but it's a different animal when you're playing against the Chiefs. I think, and it's tough. It's tough to, just like give a prediction because both these teams are very evenly matched, and I can see, one way or another. But I do think the Bengals have the Chiefs number, and I can't discount that. So I think the Bengals will win those one maybe by 3.
I mean, yeah, the Bengals have been the bully for the Chiefs. Like they are the thorn in their side. Like in my opinion, until the Chiefs prove in the postseason that they can, come back and match them, or not even the postseason, just in general, match up well with them. I got to give the Bengals this game. And also it's just the fact that, as we mentioned, Mahomes is going to be hurt. He's not going to be at full strength. So he's kind of a wild card in terms of what we're going to get. So I like the Bengals going to the Super Bowl. In the NFC, we're also going to have a pretty great game there. Got Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers taking on, the potential MVP candidate at one point in the season in Jalen Hurts. That's going to be a very great game. I don't know if you saw this, but I was listening to 98.5 The Sports Hub, and then I saw it on Twitter. The Eagles at practice today, I guess, were warming up to Higher by Creed. That was in their pregame thing. And
Come on.
And everyone in the comments, they were just saying like Eagles by 50 on Sunday. And I was like, you know what, man, like, because, it was like Creed. It was just like, oh wow, like back in the Thanksgiving game at Dallas. Like it's like, oh my God. So I don't know. That was just like a funny little thing that I saw. But have Brock Purdy, who hasn't lost a game as a starter in the NFL. You got Jalen Hurts, who I'll be honest with you. I said in my last episode that I thought the Giants were going to beat the Eagles because, one, I didn't know if Jalen Hurts was going to play, and even if he did play, what level was he going to be at. He's proven at this point, he's one of those elite guys. So I don't know really how this game's going to fare. I like the 49ers and their defense, but again, I've doubted Hurts once, and he's proven me wrong.
You know, I think the Scott Stapp factor really has to
Yeah.
be looked into, you know. No, I'm playing. It's I haven't seen anything from Brock Purdy to really tell me that he can't win. If so, it's going to be hard for me to really say anything against him. They did play it a bit too close against the Cowboys, in my personal opinion, to really merit much respect. The Cowboys did beat the Eagles, but that was the hurtless Eagles. You know, when you're really thinking about this, and you guys are hearing me thinking out loud, and it's very clear. I don't know. I like a lot of the pieces that San Francisco has. You have you know, Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. You have a very potent offense, or potentially potent offense. You have Kyle Shanahan, who's schemed well up to this point. And you have a talented defense, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, and then I forget what the name. I forget the name of that safety, but he's basically Troy Polamalu part two.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
He's out of USC as well. He plays just like Polamalu. But you know, I really like San Francisco as, you know, as a unit, whether they match up well against Philly or not.
Oh, is it Talanoa Hufanga?
Oh yeah, Funga.
Yeah, it's Hufanga.
He's a beast.
Yeah.
Funga. But the Eagles, I mean, they're the number one seed for a reason. They've been on a tear. I'm gonna go with the 49ers here. I fully understand. If the Eagles win, I fully get it.
Mm-hmm.
I fully get it. Who, like, if you think about who has more momentum going into this, the 49ers have not lost since they got Christian McCaffrey.
Mm-hmm.
They have not lost since Brock Purdy's been starting. That's so much momentum that you have, and it snowballs.
Yeah.
You know, you just keep on building and building and building. When you're on a win streak, you fight extra hard to keep that win streak up. And the Eagles' win streak is a lot shorter. I gotta go with the 49ers here. It's gonna be close.
Yeah.
I think the 49ers have that slight edge.
I mean, I like that prediction. I was leaning the 49ers coming into this episode, and frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if they take care of business on Sunday. But all I'm going to say is a rookie quarterback has never started a Super Bowl. And even though that this 49ers defense is probably better than the one that took them to the postseason, I think the moment could possibly be too big for Brock Purdy. We saw him struggle in that Cowboys game. It was the first time that, you know, he really made some mistakes. I think it was on that play before halftime where, you know, he had to just like take that ball and throw it out of bounds. And instead of just like, you know, a quick 1-2, throw it into the dirt on the sideline, you know, he does this play where he runs around, wastes, you know, way too many seconds, you know, way too much more time than he should have. And the ball just landed in time and he got chewed out on the sidelines by Kyle Shanahan. So I think that he could potentially, hold steady and be good, but you are going into Philly. You're good. Like, here's the thing. You're not going into just like any old like city. You're going into Philadelphia. They ate horse crap out of the street when they won the Super Bowl. The city police, they have to grease lamp poles because they are afraid people are going to climb on them, win or loss. Like, Eagles fans are rabid. They are basically the worst fans in football, not because of their cockiness or anything like that, just because they're goddamn animals. So like, that's the thing with me. Like, I think that is going to play a factor for Brock Purdy. Cause I mean, listen, you're out West, like it's out West. A lot of those games, it just feels very corporate. It's not like, you know, like I think 49er fans are like, you know, diehards and stuff like that. But, you know, I really don't know if he's faced an opponent like that, like, and just an atmosphere like that. Cause Philly, especially if he makes some mistakes early on, they're going to turn on him and it's going to get ugly in there. So if he can hold strong and, you know, keep going, well, you know, credit to Brock Purdy. But I think that, you know, Hurts, you know, AJ Brown and those guys, I think they could really do some damage.
my opinion on, like, because if we're looking at like matchup wise,
Sure.
I'm gonna be looking at Lane Johnson and his health, because he's playing with a torn groin. You know, he said, "Hey, every single snap, I'm in a lot of pain."
Yeah.
That going against Nick Bosa,
Mhm.
I don't know. I think that's a lot to ask of someone with a torn groin.
Sure.
So, you know, can Jalen Hurts kind of survive the pressure? And on the flip side, is Brock Purdy really that much worse than Jimmy Garoppolo was in 2019?
Fair enough. I mean, I mean, I'm actually, I mean, like people have been saying it. This 49ers offense has been better since Brock Purdy's taken over.
It's
Like that's the incredible thing. Cause listen, like Brock Purdy, like while he is kind of just this stand-in guy, he has the ability to actually make some plays and is actually, you know, he's not Pat Mahomes. Like we said, he's not Josh Allen, but he has the ability to maneuver around the pocket. I think he had that one, like there was that one touchdown pass where the pocket was collapsing around him
against the Seahawks.
Yeah, he steps up, fires that ball to Elijah Mitchell for the touchdown. I was like, I don't know if Jimmy Garoppolo is making that play. I don't know. I don't know if Trey Lance is making that play. That was a Brock Purdy play right there. So, I mean, he has the ability to create for himself, and I think that will benefit him on Sunday. It's just a matter of him being a rookie. I think up until right now, he's been able to kind of just, essentially be naive to the situation. I mean, he definitely is aware, all right, I'm playing in the NFC Championship game, but at the same time, it's going to be like, it's like, oh, maybe I'll be able to do this next year. Like he doesn't understand probably at this point, this is a very rare thing that you get to do at this point in your career. So I think he's been able to ride that high, and I don't know if that catches up to him on Sunday. That's my only fear.
Yeah, and in my stance,
but I mean, in the same breath, does Jalen Hurts have that experience either? No.
Like, I'm just spitballing here, but you know, is Brock Purdy really that much worse than 2019 Jimmy Garoppolo? Because I think the run game is better than 2019's run game.
Sure.
You have Christian McCaffrey, you have Eli Mitchell. Though that's a better 1-2 punch than Raheem Mostert and what was it? Jeff Wilson. Like I don't even remember who the other back was for the Niners. So I think, you know, if you lean on the run game and, you know, ask some of Brock Purdy, but you know, I wouldn't, you know, put everything on Brock Purdy, because again, rookie quarterback. I think that the Niners definitely have a legitimate shot of beating the Eagles, and I think they very easily. I think they very might. They probably can. I'm not saying that they will. I'm saying that they can, and I would probably. I'm leaning more towards the 49ers. That's all.
Fair enough. Now, Zeke, while we've had a lot to talk about on the show, and we talked about like some matchups, there is one more NFL topic that I want to discuss with you, and I'm going to be honest with you. It's one of the craziest, stories I think I've heard in my time. And frankly, I'm not coming out to, support any of this. Like, I think this is ridiculous. But when I saw this, I thought, this needs to be talked about, because this absolutely blew my mind. And apparently there's a conspiracy theory going around right now that, Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin, who, we all saw collapse on the field in that Monday Night Football game against the Cincinnati Bengals, was taken off the field in an ambulance. There is apparently a conspiracy theory that he didn't recover in the hospital and actually passed away. And all of these images of him since he's been, quote, released from the hospital has been a body double. And they went so far to even say that there was a body double at the Buffalo Bills Bengals game this past Sunday. And listen,
that's just distasteful.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And it's basically the reason that people are making these assumptions is because Damar Hamlin, I guess, hasn't done like an interview or anything yet, which I thought, there would have been an E60 kind of thing, like where he sits down with some ESPN reporter and talks about the experience, and, there'd be something that comes out by now. And I guess the other thing too is like, at these games, he's been like wearing like kind of like a ski mask or like some like hoodie that like is kind of like shielding his face. So people have been trying to figure out like what's going on. And it's just a ridiculous story, man. Like,
people have a right to their privacy.
like,
I mean,
yeah, like this
he's been through a traumatic experience. Let the man handle it the way the man wants to handle it.
I mean, also, if you're the NFL, why would you even try this? I get the idea of trying to inspire someone, but to hire a body double and like then like not be able to show the face and like have a guy like doing a heart thing through like a snowstorm, what are you going to be trying to do? Like, if like I'm not like, again, I'm like, it would be stupid for the NFL to do this, but if you were to do this, wouldn't you just say, oh, he's at home, and then like, have some weird grainy home video and just be like, oh yeah, he's on the couch, he's ready to roll, instead of like actually having this person go into the stadium at risk of exposure?
It's
like, people are idiots, man.
And I think I actually,
and Josh Allen went on a thing and he ended up saying like, you guys are so dumb.
I think I know why this conspiracy theory is a thing. It's the same reason. Like, if there's been athletes, young athletes who have passed away recently, and you go into the reply tweets, and everyone blames it on the vaccine. I think this is just another kind of version of that same sort of narrative where it is conspiracy theories to try to discredit medicine and to try to discredit scientific breakthroughs.
I don't know, man. It's just been like, it's a weird thing, and I'm just like, I don't give like my personal opinion on even that stuff, but it's just like it's not even that, man. Like here's the thing, like people saying this was Damar Hamlin's reaction to the COVID vaccine or anything. You don't even know if he was vaccinated.
Yeah.
Like, because the NFL, unlike the NBA, they never installed a vaccine requirement. They never did that. So like, how do you even know if Damar Hamlin was vaccinated? You have no idea what
you're just
happened.
Making assumptions.
Yeah. And frankly, like people saying like, oh, that's the reason his heart stopped. No, I knew a guy. There was a kid in my high school. It was a couple years older than me. So, so this was back in like 2010, 2011 in football, took that exact same hit to the chest and it killed him. So like, it's a very real thing that can happen to players on the field. So, this was just a crazy conspiracy that I saw. And I wanted to bring light to it just because of how insane it is. I mean, just like the idea of a body double is crazy to me.
Yeah. Especially, for that scale, right?
Yeah.
You don't,
because what does the NFL have to gain from that? Like, what do you have to gain?
Nothing.
No.
There's nothing to gain. There's only, bad publicity to kind of lose advertisers and lose money for your league. And,
because I mean,
it's not easy to find a body double.
Because I mean, listen, the NFL's stupid, but I'm praying to God that they would never be that stupid. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's like, here's the thing. And like, I don't know, like people saying like he wasn't giving the heart, he was making an Illuminati sign.
No.
I was like, oh my God, like,
this is oh my gosh.
Like, what is this? Is this freaking House of Anubis? Like,
I was gonna say, is this like 2014 MLG compilations? Like, this is terrible.
No, it's like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, that was like that part just like really killed me. I was like, you gotta be joking. But yeah. But man, that's what I had in NFL news for us. Before we do go, I want to discuss something over in baseball news. And the Boston Red Sox, similar to the Patriots, have been catching a lot of flack from the local sports fans. Obviously they lost Xander Bogaerts in free agency to the San Diego Padres. They've been kind of making weird kind of moves over this offseason, kind of, dumpster diving, doing different things like that. They did, try to salvage their reputation and sign Rafael Devers to an 11-year extension, which was great. But over the weekend, the Red Sox host this annual thing. It's like their winter weekend. And man, like this thing, it's a fan festival. Like, it's supposed to be like this very cheery, like, hey, like it's a rah-rah pep rally thing that the team hosts in the middle of the winter. And it's like, if I'm a baseball fan, but unless I'm like getting some real incentive from this, I don't even know if I would go to something like this. So like the people that go to this thing are diehard Red Sox fans. They're buying like the season tickets. Like, they care a lot about this team, but they're also very supportive of this group. And I ended up seeing that, I do just want to say really quickly, guys, that we've been having some issues with this camera. I don't know what's been going on with it, but thank you guys for watching because this has been a very weird thing. Let's see if this actually works now when I switch back over. Yeah, so here we go. But yeah, as I was saying, the Red Sox, they host this panel, and basically the entire front office, John Henry, Chaim Bloom, Sam Kennedy, they all walk out on stage to do this town hall press conference, and they get heckled mercilessly by the crowd. And it was so enjoyable to watch as a Red Sox fan. It was amazing to see because listen, man, like it was like finally, like you're getting your due, like because they were just arrogantly saying like, all right, we signed Rafael Devers, we spent some money, we did what you guys wanted us to do, and they thought that Red Sox fans were going to be content with that, and it was just like, no, we are not. And I'm thankful that I'm not the only one who really cares like this, and a large swath of the fandom still does care like this, because I don't know, like you win 4 championships, and I'm very grateful for that. It's the most, this is the most successful this franchise has ever been.
Barring like the first early years in like the
in a generation, like my relatives growing up, like they never saw the Red Sox be as competitive as they are right now. So like the fact that they have been this good is a blessing, and I'm thankful for what they've been able to do. So, but yeah, like that like the fact that they expected the fact that they expected fans to be like so happy to see them and not have this kind of reaction, it's very funny to me. And John Henry was kind of the funniest of all because like he looked so uncomfortable. He looked like he was so timid up there on stage, and I was eating it up. I loved it so much.
I mean, this has really been just brewing ever since we traded away Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
And you look back at that trade, it just gets worse.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at that trade, it just gets worse.
Mm-hmm.
You traded Mookie Betts for Alex Verdugo, who's been fine.
He's a quality outfielder. He's a starter. He's a starter.
Yeah, he's okay. Connor Wong,
a backup catcher.
A backup catcher who's primarily a minor leaguer for us.
Yeah.
And Jeter Downs, who's not even on the team anymore.
Yeah, and the problem is Jeter Downs was the centerpiece of that trade. He was the guy that we selected and said, that's the minor leaguer we want. Not Gavin Lux, not this guy. We want Jeter Downs. And, he was highly touted in the Dodger system at the time. And I remember originally we didn't have Jeter Downs in this deal. We had Brusdar Graterol as the pitcher. He was a pitcher that we had in the deal. And, he's apparently this flamethrower for the Dodgers. He's actually pretty solid for them. And we had some issues with his physical, and I think he's like 22 or something like that.
Yeah.
And we said, no, we don't want him. And, the Dodgers said, all right, we'll keep him and we'll send you Jeter Downs. And Brusdar Graterol went on to be a great reliever for them in their World Series run back in 2020. So it's just like, you can't even win that one.
Yeah,
so, when the centerpiece of your deal is released, not even after playing a full season in the big leagues, you failed on this trade. And Chaim Bloom went out on stage, and he was trying to defend this deal. Like he basically, because he ended up saying like, hey, back in 2019, we had a situation similar to Devers come up, and we didn't sign the player because when you quote make a big bet, you have to be ready to surround that bet with tons of talent. And when you can't surround that bet, and he kept saying the word bet, like he said it like 10 times in this entire thing. And I was like losing my mind, and I'm just like, you're a pretty smart guy, Chaim. If the crowd isn't like reacting positively to you, making a little joke at Mookie Betts, cut it out, because he just didn't understand it. And you're dealing with an angry mob here. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's there's a time and place for dad jokes, and I'm a big fan of dad jokes. I have a whole 365-day calendar where it's like a dad joke a day in my dorm room. There's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah.
That man, who gives you the running shoes or the bicycle in the Pokemon games was spitting on that end, right? Now, then was not the time to make that joke, and really, really isn't any time for Chaim Bloom to make that joke because
what has he done? I've said this. I have not been like. I remember people when we got rid of Dave Dombrowski in 2019, and at the time I was like, I mean, I get it. We went from being one of the most successful teams in, Major League history to a 3rd place team. And, in that case, I guess it's a big drop off. But then people were touting, bringing in a guy from Tampa, he's going to have like this money ball philosophy. And I was like, I don't really know if I'd like that. And everyone was trying to talk it up and say like, nah, man, Chaim Bloom knows what he's doing. Like he was one of those big, like key guys down in Tampa. And I was just very skeptical of it. And now everyone is on the Chaim Bloom blows train.
And, it just comes down to the fact that what do you need as a Boston Red Sox general manager? You don't need a Moneyball philosophy.
No.
We have one of the largest spending budgets in the MLB because we're a big market team. Mm-hmm. Boston's a huge market when it comes to baseball.
Yeah.
You can go and you can be like the LA Dodgers. You can spend a boatload of money and bring in all the talented players you want. But they don't.
Yeah, they're spending like the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, they're spending like a team that
the Seattle Mariners, the Cincinnati Reds, and it's just like what are you doing?
You have the ability to bring in a lot of talent and be one of the premier teams in the MLB. And they just
choose not to. Yeah.
They just don't. And it's infuriating because it's like you see someone who, needs some water to go build a sand castle and they're at the beach and they're looking around in a wade pool and they're like, oh, I don't have enough water. Turn to the left.
Yeah.
For crying out loud. You have the water, use it.
You have $270 million of John Henry's money. Use it correctly, man.
Yeah, it's just infuriating. And
like I'm sorry, like I saw another thing too, because I guess in order to get Adam Duvall on the team, we actually had to designate Matt Barnes for assignment. So he's now off the team. And now the only 3 players remaining from the 2018 World Series team is Chris Sale, Rafael Devers, and Ryan Brazier. How the hell that guy manages to stick around blows my mind, because I mean, listen, he lights it up for the Portland Sea Dogs when he's down there doing his rehab assignment every year now, but he is hot garbage when he's on the Sox. And it's like, does he, like, he has to have photos of someone, like he has to have photos of Chaim Bloom, of John Henry. He must know something for him to be still on this baseball team and not playing over in South Korea. Like, I don't know how he's still doing it. It's incredible to me.
Hey,
he should be in the KBO right now. I'm sorry.
No, he should be in the Hall of Fame for his ability to stick around. Like it's ridiculous. There's no reason, but oh well.
And I mean, listen, because here it was one thing for them to get booed at their own segment. And I guess like John Henry also has made comments. He ended up saying like, well, the ticket prices, at Fenway Park cost so much because baseball players are expensive, and that's how we pay for it. And it's like, really,
that's how you pay for who?
It's like, really, man. The Mets don't pay that much for their tickets, and they are spending through the nose right now. How do I know that? Because I've been to Mets games, and they're not nearly as expensive, and they are spending like absolute like idiots right now.
Did you see the deal that they had proposed for Carlos Correa?
I did, yes. Yeah. So like, I mean, here's the thing. Even though that deal fell through because of a physical, they're willing to spend the money, and they're showing that they're willing to do it. So, that's the crazy thing. And another element of this whole scandal that happened was, so this town hall happened and it was filmed for NESN, and it was supposed to go out on NESN's channel like this past Monday. And I guess during the actual thing, they edited out a lot of the boos that were directed at John Henry, but a lot of the heckling towards Chaim Bloom was kept in. And it's like NESN is owned by John Henry, it's owned by the Red Sox, and it's like, we know who's cutting the checks over there. So it's like, all right,
interesting.
We gotta make the big man kind of look all good. So I get that. And then I don't know. It was also just interesting to see because here's the thing. While I'm not big on Chaim, I don't think that he should just be the scapegoat for all of this. Like, because I mean, this does fall a lot on ownership. And while I blame Chaim, like Henry and Kennedy need to take a lot of the blame too.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, a GM can only work with however much money owners are willing to spend.
Yeah.
And if John Henry's not willing to spend the money, you can't really fault Chaim Bloom for that. But, we don't, at least I personally don't know the behind the scenes. I don't know how much Henry's willing to spend, whether it's a Heim problem, whether it's a Henry problem.
And there are a lot of speculation behind it, whether it be the fact that Henry has his ties with Liverpool. And that's always been an interesting thing because one of my buddies, Pat Edwards, he goes to college out in New York. And I guess he knows a kid from overseas that's a big Liverpool fan. And he talks all the time. He talks all the time about how John Henry's spending all his money on the Red Sox and not on Liverpool. And we're talking about the exact opposite. So it doesn't matter what team, he's a part of. Everyone just thinks that John Henry's a cheap bastard. Like everyone just thinks that. That's the funny thing for me. But yeah. So it's on top of them digitally editing out the booze. That's the crazy thing too, because that's just some new world order. Like, you remember in history class when you learned that Joseph Stalin had some of his political adversaries erased from photos, after some time.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm not comparing John Henry to Joseph Stalin. I want to make that clear. It's just similar in that kind of an aspect. So that's all. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just a very interesting scenario going on.
That's absurd. I didn't know that they, I remember, I didn't see the segment because I was busy, packing and everything like that to get back to school. But I heard about them editing out booze for John Henry. I did not hear about them keeping the booze in for Heim Bloom. That's really interesting.
Because at some points too, you could hear a couple boos for John Henry, but what they ended up doing is it was originally a 90-minute panel and they shortened it down to an hour for the thing, which a lot of people were saying, why would you shorten it down to an hour? Because you own the network. It's not like you had to put this on ABC or something and you had to do it to their network restraints. It's NESN. What the hell is going on? If there's not a Bruins game going on, what the hell is going on in that network? Is Charlie Moore having an ice fishing special or something like that? What's happening?
No,
you could have done all 90 minutes if you really wanted to. And there are some dedicated enough Red Sox fans that if they're willing to watch a 1 hour panel, they'll watch another 30 minutes if it's just some Q&A stuff. So in that 90-minute panel, what they ended up doing is they sometimes they would ask a question that would be hey, this question's for Sam Kennedy and John Henry. And they would just play Sam Kennedy's answer. They just would not even attempt to put John Henry's in there because there was no chance that it was going to be received well. So some of his stuff was just completely cut. And I think after the second question, apparently he doesn't say anything until his final word and the thing, and then it ends, which is crazy.
Yeah, it seems like there was that, I was learning about mass communications earlier today and public relations. That has got to be a PR
The
nightmare.
Red Sox are they've always been a PR nightmare, man. That's the thing. And it's just it shouldn't be hard for the Red Sox to be a likable organization, but when they're run by these guys that they just have no idea what they're doing, they're just afraid to talk to people, man. That's the thing is they just can't have a conversation, man.
And I feel like part of that is because when you don't talk to your fans and you don't kind of get an idea of what the fans want, then, the longer you go on without talking to your fans, the scarier it gets to talk to them because you build up that animosity where there isn't that connection where you kind of have a discourse. You don't have that repertoire with your fans that some other owners, some other GMs might have.
No, and that's the issue that's with the team. A lot of owners, especially over here in New England, you look at the Celtics owners, they'll sometimes do interviews on 98.5 The Sports Hub, pretty regularly. Robert Kraft, he's always pretty much willing to sit down and do an interview, but seeing John Henry, come out and do an interview, it's kind of like Puxatawny Phil. I know we're getting close to Groundhog Day. It's kind of like him coming out of his hole and determining whether he's going to see
a year, maybe a couple words.
Exactly. It's just hi, and then scurries back onto into his hole. So it's what the hell is going on with him? It's like an eclipse when John Henry makes a statement. So that's always just the thing with me with him. So this Red Sox team, man, it's going to be a tough year because here's the thing. They're talking about we're excited to compete in 2023. And I'm just this year looks like it could be worse than last year. And being a last place ball club, it's scary the fact that, we could be going on a downward trajectory. So if this team gets off to a slow start, they're going to be in for a long summer, and it might just turn to the point where, people just stop going to the ballpark because you can only boo so much. Eventually, you're going to have to just take off and say, we're not going to do it anymore. Cause, even during the early like 2010s, when the Red Sox had those last place seasons, like in 2012, I think there was like a record they had going where it was like for like 10 consecutive seasons, they sold out every single Red Sox game. And I don't think they had that anymore because, you saw the ballpark last year. It was some of the worst attendance numbers that they've ever had.
Yeah. And part of that is because the team was bad, but also part of that is because the prices are ridiculous. So, I don't expect to see, especially if the Red Sox continue to struggle, I don't expect to see full ballparks. But I also at the same time it's not going to be like Oakland A's levels.
No. It's never going to be that because there are enough baseball fanatics that they want to experience Fenway. It's still
baseball sickos.
Yeah, no, it's still a baseball. It's still like, like one of those places that as a fan, you like to go to and chill out at, but it's going to become like one of those things like, the Bryant University football games where people show up and by halftime, everyone's checked out. They grab a couple drinks over at the beer garden and they take off. That's pretty much what
I know more than most. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, as the commentator, you have to stick there through the fourth quarter. And I can only assume every Saturday, like you get there and the fans are going nuts and it's like, all right, maybe this is going to be the one where they stick through. And then halftime hits and it's like, it's just 15 minutes too long. And everyone's like, you know what? The townhouses are right there.
Yeah.
I'm going to go down and have myself a day. So like that's always the dilemma that you run yourself into. So, yeah.
I don't know. I will, if I have the chance to, I always love watching baseball and, I'm a, big fan of baseball. Like I go to the Bryant baseball games whenever I have a chance.
Yeah.
I'll watch minor league games. I'll watch major league games. It's a really fun sport for me to kind of be a fan of and just kind of experience. But the Red Sox, if they struggle like that, I don't, other than, people like me who will watch baseball no matter what, I have no idea how attendance is going to be otherwise.
Now, Zeke, I got to ask you before we do go, in the event that the Red Sox, will likely be garbage next year and borderline unwatchable. I'm not saying that we need to bandwagon on another team, but in the event that they are horrible, who is a team that you're going to want to support when Boston is letting you down next year?
So, this is actually something I've been keeping like close to my chest for a while. But I've always had a soft spot for the Baltimore Orioles.
Okay.
In the AL East, they haven't been a huge problem.
Sure. Yeah.
For many years actually, but even back in like 2013, that era, I was I'm a Boston Red Sox fan always. But I'm also a Baltimore Orioles fan. I played Little League for my Little League team was the Orioles. We won a Little League championship for my thing as the Orioles. So I always have that sweet spot. Plus, I really like their color scheme. Black and orange are my two favorite colors. Fair enough. And they're looking a lot more promising than they have been for almost half a decade.
Yeah.
So probably the Orioles.
Yeah, fair enough. I gotta say, I've always said it. I have an AL team, obviously it's the Sox, and then I have my NL team, it's the New York Mets. Like I've always had, and because I've said it before, my dad's from Long Island, so
Mets are a good.
He grew up a Mets fan. I've always said if the Mets are in it and the Red Sox are not, I'm gonna root for the Mets, and it's the same thing for me with the New York Giants because if the Pats are playing the Giants, I want the Pats to kill the Giants.
Oh, absolutely. And
but if their Pats had the season that they had and the Giants are in the playoffs and they're going up against the Minnesota Vikings, I'm rooting for Danny Dimes. I'm rooting for him to do well. And it might have gotten a little bit too much to my head to where I was like, you know what, they're going to kill the Eagles next weekend, and that obviously fell flat on its face. But I'm going to root for the Mets. I think that they got a great chance to compete next year. Obviously, they have that new rotation with Scherzer and Verlander up there reunited. So I'm excited for that too.
I mean, if the Red Sox are playing the Orioles, of course I'm going Red Sox, but you know, the Orioles are definitely like I'll root for them against anyone else but the Sox.
Fair enough. All right. Well, Zeke, it's been great having you on the show, man. Obviously, time today has flown by, but we are now down to the wire, which means that we're going to wrap up what we talked about in the show and send you guys on your way into the weekend. We talked about the New England Patriots bringing back Billy O'Brien, talked about Pat Mahomes' health heading into the AFC Championship game. We previewed that game, as well as the NFC Championship game between the Eagles and the Niners. We talked about the Damar Hamlin body double internet conspiracy. Yeah. And then we wrap things up over in MLB news, talking about Nesson digitally editing out the boos from Red Sox winter weekend. All in all, great episode. Zeke, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I hope, come February time that I'll be back as the premier XFL analyst.
I mean, man, I'd love to have you back. Obviously, that is something that we'll have to talk about further, but Down to the Wire's origins we talked a lot of XFL early on. We had our commentator and Carter Adams. He's no longer at the school, but I'd be totally down to bring back some XFL segments and have you join me for that. So, keep a lookout for that. We're getting close to the 3-year anniversary of Down to the Wire. That's coming up in February. So, stay tuned for that. Hopefully I have some good stuff for that plan for you guys, but from Down to the Wire, I'm Brian Costa
and I'm Zeke Kransdorf,
and we hope you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy this first weekend back at Bryant University. If, you guys are some Bryant students listening,
stay safe.
And stay safe, take care, and peace out.